everyone. It's Arivi Vargas, your host on the Humble Rising podcast, and I'm so glad you are here. Now, before we dive into this new season of the podcast, I wanted to take a moment to acknowledge that we're living in and have been living in a very challenging, incredibly sad times. And I'm not going to say the typical, there's a lot happening in the world and it's really overwhelming. I am going to say that what's happening in this country, and for listening from another country, I'm talking about the United States. What's happening in this country is absolutely horrific. And it's painful and it's scary and it's disappointing. And as a lawyer, and I may have mentioned this before on previous episodes, as a lawyer who cares about the rule of law, who took an oath to protect and defend the Constitution, it is so disturbing. I don't even have words. I don't even have words for how disappointing and sad and crazy it is for the federal government to literally break the law and to basically poo-poo the Constitution. So I can't even put into words what that is like, because it's so beyond what I would have imagined, what anyone could ever imagine, right? The lies that are told and people who believe that and then claim to care about you as a person. It's like, actually, no, this is not about Republican, Democrat anymore. It's not about that. This is literally about your moral compass, where your values are. Do you value democracy? Do you care about our Constitution? If you care about that, it doesn't matter what party you're a part of. It matters how you hold people accountable when they decide that the Constitution doesn't apply anymore. And that to me is insanity. And we're not supposed to be living in an authoritative regime. We're not supposed to be living in a fascist regime. We're not supposed to be living in that kind of environment. But yet we are there. So I don't say this I know that sometimes you listen to this podcast and it's uplifting and it's empowering and it's informative. And I want you to get all of that from this podcast, but I have to also acknowledge what's happening in the world and what's happening specifically in this country. I have to say that there is a place for joy and for fulfillment and for learning and for growing and for being inspired and feeling empowered to change your life and grow in the way that you want to grow and do the things that you want to do. Choose yourself, to define success on your terms. All of those things are true. And what's also true as the stuff that's happening right now is it's okay if it makes you angry and you're confused and you're overwhelmed and you're grieving and you feel helpless. Right? All these things are true. We can cheer for Bad Bunny and be so excited that he won Album of the Year at the Grammys and that he's headlining the Super Bowl. And, which, let me just say, him winning that award at the Grammys and the accolades he has received over the years and years of hard work, let me tell you, it was healing for me, okay? Healing for me. As someone who grew up where Latinos and Latinas and Latinidad, that was not a cool thing, okay? You were just other, you were different, you were weird, okay? It wasn't the way it is now. And so when you see someone who shares your culture, it's healing to know that, we're seen in that way. Not that you needed people's approval, but when you're a kid, you kind of feel like you do. You want to feel validated. You want to feel seen. And we don't have that. You have to kind of fight for it. And so we can celebrate that and celebrate Latinidad and celebrate Bad Bunny and what it means for him to be in this position, what it means for an entire community. We can celebrate that he is one of the first people to be like, ice out. He wasn't playing around. Unlike Prince Royce and Romeo Santos, who don't have a backbone, talking about how, well, artists should stick to music. Well, boo-boos, clearly you need to take a second look at that, because your community is falling apart and trying to keep it together, and y'all over here not having a backbone. Y'all over here talking about how, no, I don't get involved in politics. This isn't politics anymore. It's about humanity. Okay. So I'm all about Bad Bunny. I'm all about lifting up our community. I'm all about, sharing inspirational, empowering content with you that's actionable, that's helpful. And I want you to feel good about your life. And I also want you to recognize that sometimes it feels really shitty right now to feel the way that we feel. And I know, because I can go into this mode too, I know it would be easier to numb yourself out or to go quiet. I know it's easier. It's easier because it's just so much. Not only do you have the mental load of your life, work, kids, parents, all the things that you deal with, all the demands for your time, the expectations, you feel like you're not doing enough most of the time, even though, trust me, you're probably killing it, but your standards are just so high that you're never going to meet them. It's easier to kind of clock out and to ignore, because to face it, to see what's happening is so disturbing. You're like, oh my gosh, on top of all the things I have to do in my life and all the things I deal with, I now have to deal with this country falling apart. I have to deal with this democracy going to shit. I have to deal with people not knowing that there are 3 branches of government, checks and balances. I have to deal with the fact that there is such a disregard for human life. And I get it. The weight, everything compounds, and the weight of that is really difficult to carry. But what I'm saying is we can't ignore it. Even, I know it's hard, but you can't ignore it. You have to stay informed. You have to share information that's correct and truthful with people, right? We have to be there for our communities. We have to be there for other people. And we may not be able to do everything. I sure can't, but we can do something. We can use our voice. We can stay awake. Don't go to sleep. Stay awake. All right? We can lead with more compassion. We can lead with more courage, even in really hard times. And so that brings me to today's episode. And as we begin this new season of the Humble Rising podcast, I want to talk to those of you who are quietly finding yourselves in the moment of transition, crossroads, inflection point, whatever you want to call it. It's this tug of war. Maybe you're in between seasons of your career or your life. Maybe you're in something new. Maybe you just embarked on something new, a new journey, or you left a job you've had for 20 years, 25 years, and you're taking a sabbatical. Whatever it is for you. It doesn't have to be that big. But there isn't some big dramatic shift that's happening, maybe. It could be. But a lot of times when you're in a moment of transition or inflection, you are feeling an internal type of crossroads. A lot of times it's more subtle. And you're asking questions and you're saying things like, what am I doing all this for? You're saying things like, I don't know what I want. I don't know how to start doing things differently. Why can't I just be happy? I should be happy by now. I've worked so hard. Why is it never good enough? I don't know how long I can keep doing this. Or I can't live this way anymore. I can't live like this anymore. I mean, there's so many other things you probably tell yourself. But if you've felt any of that, I want you to know that obviously you're not alone, because I hear those things all the time from clients. But this is often what change really looks like. This is where it starts, where you start telling yourself these things or asking yourself these questions and you start noticing it more. You're asking these questions more to yourself. And it's quiet. You may not tell anybody, but inside you catch yourself and you're like, yeah, why can't I be happy? Why can't I ever be satisfied? Why is it never enough? Why is it never good enough? And you're noticing the feeling. And that's a massive step, right? Because sometimes when you're at this inflection point, what used to make sense for you is starting not to make as much sense. What used to motivate you is starting not to motivate you as much anymore. The excitement you used to have sometimes has declined or disappeared, right? And maybe what you used to tolerate and think wasn't a big deal, was no problem, has now become a problem and is now something you have to deal with that is causing you stress. So this episode is about naming that, and it's about honoring the in between and about giving you something to hold on to when your clarity isn't fully there yet. Right? You haven't really sifted through and unpacked what's going on underneath the surface for yourself yet. So today, I want to share 3 things that might be helpful. One is a few questions that you can ask yourself to assess where you are. I want you to be able to assess where you are quickly. Now, the work of assessment is deeper than a few questions, but I want you to get started. That's the point. The second thing I want to share today is a description of some of the patterns I see people getting stuck in right now. It could be behavioral thinking patterns, and I'm sure that when I share them with you, you will resonate with some of them, and you will relate to them, and you will see how we can start to move forward differently, which is the third thing I will share, is some practical things you can do to start moving forward in a different way, to move you just a little bit past that stuckness feeling you have. Sometimes you have to sit in stuckness for a little bit to kind of get your bearings. And then there's a moment or there's a time for inching just a little bit away from where you are stuck, right? It's not about going from 0 to 100. It's literally about going from 0 to 0.2%. So I want you to focus on increments and small steps, not big, massive changes. Obviously, I am a fan of taking big leaps. I am a fan of taking risks on yourself. I'm a fan of betting on yourself. But I need you to make sure that if you do those things, it is intentional and you have gone through a process of assessment, of recalibration, of alignment, of discernment, all the things. It cannot be rash and it cannot be reactive. That's not what we're doing here, and it will not serve you to make a decision based on reaction, based on desperation, or based on you running away from something. You want to make sure you are running towards something that is meaningful to you and that has purpose for you. The second is patterns, thinking patterns, behavioral patterns that I'm seeing in folks right now that are keeping them stuck. And then things that you can do to start to move forward a little differently. Again, no massive big shifts. We're talking about small things that you can do that are very manageable and will overwhelm you. Questions to assess where you are and why that matters. So before you think about anything else, before I talk about anything else, I want to say this. This is not about journaling for the sake of it. It's not to check the box that I answered these questions and I did what I was told. This is not that work. These questions are really intended for you to recalibrate what we sometimes call your internal North Star or your internal compass. It's to begin to understand what it is, because look, you answering a few questions is not going to complete that process, right? But it gets you started. And so often people ask me, where do I start? If you do some of the work that I've shared in different podcast episodes, you can get unstuck with those things. Now, keeping the momentum can be more difficult without support, but you do have a place to start. The issue is never that you don't have the information. The issue is never that you don't have the advice. The issue is never that you don't understand logically or intellectually what you need to do. The issue is doing it. The issue is following through on it. The issue is executing it. And then the issue is doing that consistently in a sustainable way over time. That's the challenge. You have information. You can go right now and ask ChatGPT anything you want. They'll give you a ton of information. How do I get unstuck in my career? Why don't I feel happy in my life? Why am I always dissatisfied? When is it going to be good enough? How do I figure out why I'm doing this? How do I figure out how to untangle my self-worth from my work and my title and the prestige of where I work and my industry and my profession? You can do all of that. It'll give you a bunch of answers. Now, I'd be careful because sometimes it lies. It's not fully honest. It doesn't have great information. However, you could get some information. And maybe one of the AI platforms is pretty good. It doesn't replace the other steps that you need to take after you get the information. Okay? So we're talking about how do you get started in terms of getting unstuck? How do you move a little bit, like 0.1%, 0.2%, which is a whole lot better than zero, let me tell you. Because when you're in, and many of you are in this space, when you are constantly in motion, you're leading, you're executing, you're managing everyone else's needs and demands and all the things that we often talk about on this podcast. You are operating from a place of catch-up. You're ketchup, not the ketchup you eat with French fries. Ketchup, like catch up to it, like you're behind something. And I'm only mentioning that because my children, if you can't hear them right now, they're screaming in the background, singing something I don't even know. So I thought of ketchup because they're probably eating something with ketchup right now. But I'm talking about when you are living from a place of you're behind. You're living from that mindset. You're living from a place of reactivity. You're reacting to things. You're playing whack-a-mole instead of being a little bit more purposeful, because it's hard to do that when you feel like you have no space to do it. And it's hard to do it when you have so many things going on and you're just trying to survive and make it work. But what happens oftentimes, we're in constant motion, constantly moving, constantly trying to get everything done, which, by the way, will never all be done, okay? But when we do that, we can lose sight of what is really meaningful for us. I mean, I call it losing sight of your own truth, right? Losing yourself in the process. Those are different ways to describe it. But when that happens long enough, your disconnection from yourself, the distance becomes wider. And the disconnection becomes more powerful and it's stronger, meaning you're more likely to feel more disconnected as time goes on than to be connected. That's why stopping to assess where you are is not some luxury or some indulgent thing you do. It's not even something you do that's an extra. This is for your health. This is for your mental, emotional health. This is for your well-being. This is for you to feel like you're actually living your life instead of, everyone talks about the treadmill, running on the hedonic treadmill. Yes, it's to stop feeling like you're always running on the treadmill. You're always trying to chase something that you can never get. This is about your health, holistic health. And it's also necessary to assess where you are, is also necessary for you to just have a more sustainable work life, for you to be high performing more sustainably, for you to lead more sustainably, for you to parent more sustainably, for you to have good relationships in your life, for you to have a good relationship with yourself in your life, right? And it's definitely necessary if you want to feel like you're living more in alignment internally, not just performing well and doing all the things. So here are some of the questions you can use to check in with yourself with, right? Here are some of those questions. One is, where am I operating from autopilot? Going through the motions. That's autopilot. We're just going through the motions. Where am I operating from autopilot? And where am I truly awake? Where am I truly awake? Where am I awake means, where am I noticing things and where am I being intentional about things? I'm not just going through the motions. I'm being more intentional. I'm being a little bit more purposeful. I'm feeling a bit more energized in those areas. So in which areas am I operating from autopilot and which areas do I feel truly awake? And be honest about that, especially if the autopilot area is relationship based or the autopilot area is work based. Be honest about, well, what parts of work are you running on autopilot? The second question is, what parts of my work still feel exciting and still feel energizing? And what parts feel like it's just about producing and it's more about you being in survival mode? Right? So what parts of my work still feel exciting to me? They still feel like they motivate me. They still give me that energy and fill me up in that way. What parts of my work do that for me? And then what parts feel like it's a chore, it's output, I'm just trying to get through it. Be honest about those things. Again, we're not asking for any decisions here. You're just being honest with yourself. Now, the reason why you would hesitate here about being honest, one of the primary reasons you would hesitate here in terms of being honest with yourself is because you understand, because you're very smart, you understand that once you admit something to yourself, oh, shoot, maybe I have to do something with that information. Because you're a performer, you're a doer, you execute, you get stuff done. And so your brain automatically is like, information, what do I do with information? What do I do with that? And you may hesitate to tell yourself the truth because if you admit the truth to yourself, then, oh, dang, you may have to do something with that information. And you rather not have that be an added mental tab in your brain because that would be just another thing you're going to be thinking about. And I'm asking you to do it anyway. The third question, where am I compromising myself? Where am I compromising myself? Where am I compromising my sense of peace? And I'm not going to give you a definition there. Think about what peace means for you. Where am I compromising myself in terms of my peace, my values, and my time for something that no longer feels worth it? Fourth question, what emotions have been showing up for me lately? What emotions have been surfacing lately? And am I actually paying attention to them? Is it anger? Is it frustration? Is it grief? Sadness? Joy? Joy especially. We think of, when I say emotions, people go, oh, the negative emotions, the quote unquote negative emotions. I don't think anger, frustration, grief, I don't think those are negative per se. I think people perceive them as negative because you always want to feel satisfied and happy and joyful, but that's not the human experience. You feel all things all the time. I don't think one is negative or positive. I think it's just what it is. But also pay attention to the joy you might be feeling. Like, do you pay attention to that? Do you pay attention to when you feel energized and you feel joyful and you feel elated about something? And then do you pay attention when you feel frustrated and you feel sad or you feel restless, you feel unsettled? Are you paying attention to that? What's coming up for you? That's the question. Just be honest about that. And then the last question is, what am I, maybe secretly or quietly, what am I craving more of? What do I kind of want more of? Even if I feel maybe a little guilty, I'm going to use that word because that's what a lot of you use. Maybe even if I feel guilty for wanting it, or maybe I feel like, ooh, it makes me feel a little ungrateful for wanting it. Although we've talked about that gratitude rides alongside ambition, right? But what are you craving more of? What do you want more of? And conversely, what do you need less of? What do you need less of? And then I'll add one more. while you're there with your journal, of course, if you're not driving, because if you're driving, you shouldn't be journaling. One of the biggest questions I ask folks is, if nothing were to change, if you were to change nothing in your life over the next 6 to 12 months, how would you feel? How would you feel? See, when you take the time to get honest with yourself and really come at it from a place of compassion and love and without judgment, you start to create a new baseline and you start seeing what's off. What is the real root of why I feel off? What is that about? Change always comes after you've done this inner work and you've leveled up your self-awareness. You cannot move forward from a place where you don't know where that place is. Think about if you're like me, and even when you know exactly where you're going, that's 20 minutes away, you still put it in the GPS because you just want to make sure that there's no traffic. You want to make sure that you know that the route you're on, that you always take, that there isn't going to be an accident. And so you want to have a different way of getting there because you got to get to wherever you got to go. But I have a starting place, right? And then I have an end point. And the GPS knows how to take me from where I am to where I would like to go. Same thing applies to you, but you got to have a starting point. So where are you actually starting from? Where are you actually at? Only when you do that can then you move forward. Only then can you make meaningful changes instead of doing your tricks and doing your short-term fixes, which probably are not working for you because they're not sustainable. You cannot maintain them over time. Okay, as I promised, second part of this conversation is I'm talking about some patterns that I'm seeing in folks that are stuck right now. So let's talk about what actually is keeping people stuck. Now, I can't tackle all of it in this short episode. This is more of a piece or a part of what you would think is keeping people stuck, right? There are so many things. I can't tackle all of them, but I'm going to tackle some of the most common ones, especially with my fellow high achievers, my high performers, with a lot of responsibilities and demands for their time and who are super ambitious. Here's what I'm saying. One is a lot of you are shrinking yourselves and are shrinking your needs because you say to yourself, it's not that bad. It's not. I mean, it could be worse. That's what you're telling yourself. You're convincing yourself that because I have a good job, I have a good this, I have a good that, I'm doing well here, that you shouldn't complain. And so many people right now are going through so many worse things. Oh my gosh, like I just have to be grateful. Okay, you're pushing down what you want though. You're suppressing something. If you really didn't want anything else, that's totally fine. That is completely acceptable for you to be satisfied with where you are. That's a great thing. And it's also a great thing when you are in a position where you also want more and you're grateful for what you have. But you have to be honest with yourself. You have to be honest with yourself about what you're pushing down and what you're suppressing and what you're not. Because you also don't want to be in a position where you're minimizing the discomfort that comes with recognizing that you do want more and that maybe you aren't as satisfied as you appear to be, or maybe you aren't as satisfied as you want people to believe. That pattern of shrinking your own needs, convincing yourself that you don't need anything else, you don't want anything else, because it's not that bad and you should be grateful for what you have. Be careful there. Be careful and recognize what's true for you is that maybe you do want something more, and ask yourself, what does that look like? And if you don't know the answer to that, then ask yourself, what might that look like? What could it look like? Just write it down in your journal. Write it down somewhere. No one has to see it. It's only for you. Second pattern I'm seeing is we are mistaking external recognition, approval for internal alignment. So maybe you get the praise, you get the promotion, the raise, the bonus, all the good stuff. All that stuff that we want. We want some recognition for our hard work. You want to get paid for your sacrifices. There's no shame in that game. I'm there with you. It's true. Something shifts when you are getting the praise, the recognition, the approval, all the validation. You're getting paid for your sacrifices. You get all of that. And then it just doesn't feel like it's fulfilling. It's not satisfying as it used to be. It's not as satisfying as it used to be. It's not as meaningful as it used to be. It still feels kind of empty for you. You're still feeling a kind of emptiness. Or you're feeling, I wouldn't say numbness, but it could be that. But it's right shy of numbness. Where before you were so excited and felt so validated that you were getting all this recognition and being rewarded for your hard work and your efforts. And you still care about that, but it doesn't mean what it used to mean to you. And so the pattern I'm seeing is that we have been mistaken this external praise and approval for internal alignment, and we're starting to untangle it. And we're starting to see, people are starting to understand and see and realize that validation and that recognition for the things that you do, especially at work, doesn't equal fulfillment. Doesn't equal fulfillment. And what I try to explain is that, again, this is deeper work, but what I try to explain is that when you are relying on anything external to completely fulfill you personally, one, you give too much power away to that thing, right? But second, you need a wider base of your source for fulfillment. You need a wider, deeper base. It can't be focused 95% on work. And I'm going to tell you this because it's what I see with clients. It's what I have seen for years. It doesn't matter if you have children. The problem with attaching external recognition and approval with your internal feelings of fulfillment and internal feelings of worthiness, it's true if you don't have kids and when you do have children. Because what happens for most people is when they have children, they don't change their mindset automatically. There's no automatic shift in your mindset. Yes, you have a new priority. Yes. But it doesn't automatically change how you think about your role as a parent. It doesn't automatically change your behavior in terms of how you work. People say, what do you mean? Like we do pickups and we do, don't assume that. Not everybody is dropping their kids off at school or daycare and everybody is going to daycare. Some people have nannies. Not everybody is picking up their kids from after school. Not everyone has a different experience. And so I want to be very clear that this idea that people assume that when you have children, that you no longer will tether your worth to your work is not true. I have not seen that. And I can guarantee you most coaches will tell you the same thing. It just looks different. Just looks different. Third pattern I'm seeing is, and I alluded to this before, is that you're living in what I call, you're living in the until mode. You're living in the delay mode. You're living in the when that happens, then I will do X. So you're delaying the thing you need to do. You're delaying the work you have to do. You might tell yourself, I'll figure it out after this month when this month is crazy. I'll figure it out after this week. Oh, it's so crazy. I'll figure it out after this quarter because this quarter is just so much going on. I'll figure it out after this launch, after this case is over, after this matter is done, after this deal is done, after things calm down, when it's quiet. I don't know about you, but life for me is never quiet unless I create the quiet. Life doesn't just calm down. People and things keep moving. Work keeps moving. Deals keep coming. Work keeps coming at you. Demands, it's endless. Your list continues to grow. You're waiting for something that is not going to happen. Because the delay and the conditions you're setting become pretty permanent. And so you never actually stop to realign. And slowly, your life starts to feel like it's happening to you, like you're beholden to it, rather than you leading it. I talk a lot about self-leadership, leading in your life, leading at work. The predecessor to that is leading in your own life. I do not believe that you can lead at work effectively with impact if you have not tried to master self-leadership. So what can you do about that pattern? You're constantly living in, okay, I'll address it later. What I'm asking you to do is think about how you might start addressing it now. Maybe that's easy for you to say. No, it's not, because I just gave you a bunch of questions you can answer in your journal. That's a start. You're not delaying. If you answer those questions, you're not delaying. You're taking action. What do you mean I'm taking action? Yes, you considering the truth of your life is a massive action. Actually, it is. Most people avoid it for the reasons I mentioned before. Oh, if I say that out loud, if I admit it to myself, ooh, I may have to do something about that. Then it's another thing I have to think about and another thing I have to grapple with. Yes. Welcome to life. Welcome to life. If you want to live a good, full life, you're going to have to grapple with these things. It's part of the journey. You don't, stress, challenge, part of life, uncertainty, part of life. Love, fear, all part of life. This is the journey. It never ends. You might as well go on a journey you want to go on. The fourth pattern I'm seeing, there are 5 total, so we're almost there. It's your over-identifying with performance. This is connected to what I mentioned before, except it's a little bit broader. So you're attaching your worth to how well you're doing, how well you're perceived as doing, your lifestyle, right? How much you produce, how many people you know and you support and where you're at. And look, there's nothing wrong with being well connected and doing well. Like, let's call that out. Like, amen to that. Let's go. Get your Christian Louboutins. Whatever floats your boat, do it. Okay. I'm not saying that that's inherently bad. That's great. We love when people are successful in the ways that they want to be successful, and it feels good. And your life and your work feels good. I want that for you. That's one of my personal missions in all the work that I do, is that I want you to feel so damn good about your life, so damn good about the way that you live your life and how you work and how you lead. I want you to love it. Yes, there are going to be hard times and challenges and stresses and highs and lows, but damn, like, you're doing your thing. You're being intentional. You're operating with purpose. You don't wait for things to happen. You make things happen. Like, that's powerful. I want you to be in that powerful seat, right? But when you over-identify with your performance in life, I do well, I do this, and I do that. When you over-identify with it yourself, you're performing, meaning you're not being you. You're not being authentic to you. And you're not resting, and you're not asking for help, because to do so would be a risk to your identity. I'm a strong person. I don't need anyone's help. Right? But when you're in performance constantly, it's exhausting. And some of you are over-identifying with that. You're over-identifying with the identity of being a performer. And so you're losing your authenticity. And so we want to go back to who you really are. Again, go back to those questions that I asked you to answer in the beginning. This will help you move the needle there. It'll help you see things a little bit differently. And that's a start. The last pattern that I'm seeing is, this is the big one. And I know I'm going to hit a chord with this one. It is, you're feeling trapped by the life that you've built. They've worked very hard to build a life that you probably dreamed of having years ago. You're feeling trapped by this life you've built or this role that you're in that is extremely demanding, even though it may be prestigious and a role that you have maybe wanted for a long time and you've worked really hard for. This is really common among very senior folks. So when I say senior folks, I mean people that are 20 plus years in their career. Senior, probably more like 30 to 40, but 40 years, but 30 to 40 years. But you'll see this more in people who have at least 2 decades of experience. It doesn't mean that it can't be true for someone with 10 years, but I see it more often in those who are more senior in their career because you've worked very hard for a long period of time. But now that you're here, it doesn't give you the same meaning it did before. It doesn't fulfill you the way it used to before. It doesn't excite you the way that it used to, maybe. And oftentimes you're not sure it's what you want anymore. In these roles, it's often very demanding. And so you're asking yourself, what am I doing all this for? What am I sacrificing all this for? And because of that, you also start questioning everything, sometimes with a lot of shame. And you feel sometimes ungrateful because who wouldn't want the things that you have? You've worked very hard for them, but who wouldn't want those things? How blessed. You would say to yourself, I'm so blessed. I'm so grateful. Oh, but it's great, but it's fine. It's great. It's fine. Oh, what's wrong with me? What's wrong with me that I don't want this anymore, that I'm questioning it when anyone would do anything to be in this position? And again, that narrative of, and there are so many issues going on and problems in the world and people literally dying. And look at me, I'm complaining with my privilege about this job or this life I've built. Nothing's wrong with you. Many people have those thought patterns. They're thoughts. We all think things. You don't have to believe everything you think. We know that. But you're evolving and you're allowed to you're allowed to have these thoughts and think about these things. You're allowed to go through the process. You're allowed to reassess your life. You are allowed to look at your life differently. You are allowed to think about your life differently. You are allowed to do things differently than you did before. You're human. This is part of the experience. And you don't need to justify how you feel to anybody. You don't need to justify wanting something more. You don't have to justify wanting less or something different. You don't have to justify it. It is how you feel, period. Okay, so now I want to offer you a way to move forward a little bit differently than you're moving right now. So I want you, in addition to the questions that I gave you in the beginning, I want you to pick one area of your life. You can pick more, but to make this manageable and less overwhelming, I really recommend just choosing one. So pick one area of your life. Maybe it is work, maybe it is relationships, maybe it is physical health or some kind of wellness area, and ask yourself 2 questions. One is, what feels most out of sync or out of integrity right now? Like, what feels most misaligned with me right now? Now, if you answered the previous questions, this will be helpful because you'll have some information to work with this question. So what feels most out of sync or out of integrity or misaligned right now with one area of your life? Again, pick that area of your life. And the second question to answer is, well, then what's one small action I can take to move a little closer to alignment, to being more in sync, to feel like I'm in integrity? What's one small action I can take? Now, if you tell me, oh, please, Eddie B, one small action, okay, anyone can do that. Go ahead, try it. Sometimes the smallest things, the things that you think are small, are actually really big. Or they seem small, but then doing it feels really big to you, feels big in your body. You have feelings about it. You got emotions about it. Your body responds like with some tension and some tightness. That's telling you it's not small. It's actually big in terms of impact on you. So don't get it twisted. One small action can have a big impact, both in when you're going to do it, because you may feel some resistance or a lot of resistance, and in what it could mean for you. Because when you take action, that's what creates momentum. And that's what creates motivation. The motivation and momentum don't come without doing something first. This idea that you one day will get motivated and one day you'll just do it is not going to happen. We know that that's like psychology 101. We think people mistakenly believe that, oh, I just need to like get motivated, like put my music on, like get motivated and just do it. I'm like, that's great for once or twice. That can definitely work. It's not sustainable. You need to be taking the action to create the momentum. And let me even tell you, sometimes action also precedes belief. For you to believe differently about something, for you to believe differently about your capability, for you to believe differently about your confidence level and how much you trust yourself, often that doesn't come with belief work. It comes with action that makes you believe something different because now you have more evidence to believe that thing is actually true. So you don't need this 5 steps right now. You don't need a full plan. You don't need a big strategy. None of that. You just need one small action. So maybe it is being very specific about what boundary you're going to set. Maybe it's sending an email to someone and asking them for some advice based on their experience and expertise. Maybe it's blocking 30 minutes this week for yourself to reflect, to journal, to meditate. And if you're rolling your eyes right now and you're saying, oh my gosh, I can't meditate. Listen, that's another episode. Everyone can meditate. Aim is for 5 minutes. You can do it. But maybe it's 30 minutes to just listen to yourself and be still. It could be 30 minutes to, you know what? It brings you joy to watch The Pit on Hulu. Do that. Something for you. Anything that is the thing you need to do to move yourself closer to alignment in the area where you feel the most misaligned. That's what you're trying to do. And whatever that small action is, that's enough. And then you can take another step after that. Because when we talk about lasting change or lasting transformation, it always starts with one step at a time. You've heard this before. I know you've heard this before. You've heard it when it comes to any book like Atomic Habits by James Clear, talking about habit formation. We know this, that small actions over time will create the most lasting change. Not big, huge commitments. That's why by February, 80% of you, your New Year's quote unquote resolutions are done. You haven't done them. You haven't stayed committed to them because it wasn't based on the right formula. You need to start very small and you build on each step as you move forward. And then you can say, I'm a person who, whatever your goal is, right? So for many of you, say if it's about taking care of yourself better, right? When you start taking small steps that provide your own brain evidence that you're a person who takes care of themselves because you have evidence of doing that. You have evidence that you're taking care of yourself because every single day or every other day, whatever it is, you're doing something for you. You're giving your brain evidence that, yeah, I'm a person who takes care of my well-being, who takes care of themselves. And then your identity becomes what you've been doing. And then you also believe that's who you are becoming. Okay, so we have to be really careful about downplaying small actions over time. They are what reformulate your identity. They are what reformulate what you believe about yourself, what you believe you can be capable of. Which is why coaching is so powerful because we get you into action so you can then have the belief and you keep the momentum going. So if you are in this messy middle, I like to call it, it's like a gray, foggy, middle in between space. I want you to know, one, you're so not alone. There's so many people going through it right now too. It's just they don't talk about it, but they're going through it. Let me tell you, because I talk to them every day. You're not failing. You're learning. This is all a learning process. This is all a journey. Okay, you're just in it right now, and it's okay to be in it. This is not a a sign that you need to do something right away. We're not going into massive action right away. You don't need to do that right now, especially if you're in an in between. You're in between place. You're very vulnerable. So you want to take care of yourself in this space and be kind, compassionate with yourself, and give yourself grace, meaning acknowledge it's hard and you're in this kind of limbo and you're in this situation, this season, and that you're gonna have to sit in it in a bit, and you're gonna take small actions, you're going to be introspective, you're going to move forward, but it's not gonna be a linear straight path or upward path to move through it. It's gonna kinda be a little bit of a roller coaster and back and forth and up and down, and recognizing that that's okay. It doesn't mean you're losing momentum or progress. This is what it looks like to be on this journey. It's not a sign that you need to be fixed or that something's wrong with you or that you're broken. Like, you're not broken, okay? This is the place. This is why I think reassessing is so important, and recalibrating is so important, and taking a look at things honestly is so important, because it's where you have to start. It's where you have to start. You have to start with honesty. So take a breath. Give yourself permission to not know everything, to not know how it's all going to turn out, because you don't know. You don't know how it's going to turn out. You don't know. You don't know if your decisions are going to be, quote unquote, the right decisions, right? You don't. The way that we frame that is inherently unhelpful, because whatever decision you make is what it is. It is going to help you learn and grow even more. So whether it was right or wrong doesn't really matter. That's really a matter of perception. So be in this process. And yes, sitting in your own shit sucks. Let's be honest. It sucks. It's not fun. It is not, where I want to spend all my time. But it's necessary in these kinds of seasons to sit in your stuff, be honest with yourself, and decide, who do I want to be now? What is true for me now? What am I done with? What do I want more of? What do I want less of? All those questions. Those questions are how you tune in to what's going on. That's how you get more present with yourself and you start feeling more like yourself. It's often, in these kinds of seasons, it's often a peeling back of layers. It's a peeling back of masks you have accumulated and piled onto your face and your body over time. So many people talk to me about how they've spent their lives accumulating and accomplishing, and then how there comes a point where they're just like, I want to just distill it. I want to shed it. I want to get rid of so much of it because it's kind of suffocating. And that may be where you are too. What I'm saying is, take it easy on yourself. Get honest with yourself and start moving forward very intentionally with purpose and with focus. I want to thank you for being here. If something in this episode opened something up for you, even just a small realization. To me, realizations really aren't small. Everything to me is profound. But I'd love to hear from you. So you can connect with me on Instagram or LinkedIn, or share this episode with someone else who might need it right now. We have some incredible guests coming this season. We're talking about redefining success. You know this one, untangling the self-worth from achievement, from producing, from performing, from profession. We're talking about how to navigate leadership transitions, how to be a more impactful, effective leader, how to not burn out. We're talking about money mindset, well-being, all the things that people don't often want to talk about out loud or embarrassed to talk about. We're going to talk about them. But for today, I just want to say that you are not behind. You are not broken. You don't need to be fixed. There's nothing wrong with you. You are in motion. You are being human. And I cannot tell you how critical it is for you to appreciate your own humanity and the humanity of others at this time in life and in this country. I am so glad that you are here, and I will see you next time.